The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across our family ranch in rural Tennessee as I pulled my weathered Ford truck into the gravel driveway. The engine coughed as I turned it off, and I sat there for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching through the windshield as my younger brother Dylan stood on the wraparound porch, gesturing animatedly while our father nodded with an expression of pure pride. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the one that had lived there since childhood, since I'd first realized that nothing I did would ever measure up. I'm Marcus Henderson, 34 years old, and I've spent my entire life being invisible. I stepped out of the truck, my worn work boots crunching on the gravel. My clothes still carried the smell of motor oil from the auto shop where I'd worked a double shift yesterday. Dylan, on the other hand, looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog in his pressed khakis and navy polo shirt. "Marcus, you made it," Mom called from the doorway, her smile warm but tinged with something that looked like pity. She'd always been kinder to me, but even her kindness felt like an acknowledgement of my lesser status. "Wouldn't miss it, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile as I climbed the porch steps. Dylan turned, his perfect white teeth flashing in a grin that never quite reached his eyes. "Big bro. Dad was just telling me about the new irrigation system. I've been consulting with some agricultural engineers out of Nashville. Got some ideas that could double the yield on the eastern fields." Dad clapped Dylan on the shoulder with genuine affection, the kind he'd never shown me. "This boy's got vision, Marcus, real vision. Not just maintaining what we have, but expanding it, improving it." I nodded, the implied criticism landing like it always did. Maintaining. That's what I'd been doing for the past 15 years. Maintaining. The ranch, while Dylan was off at college, then grad school, then building his consulting business in the city. I'd been the one fixing fences at dawn, dealing with sick livestock at midnight, making sure the property taxes got paid when money was tight. But none of that mattered now that Dylan was back, full of ideas and charm. We moved inside to the dining room, where Mom had set the table with her good china. The room was warm, filled with the golden light of the chandelier that Dylan had supposedly upgraded last year, though I'd been the one who actually installed it, following Dylan's emailed instructions. My wife Jennifer arrived moments later with our two daughters, Emma, 8, and Sophie, 5. Jennifer worked as a nurse at the county hospital, and her exhaustion showed in the dark circles under her eyes. She'd just finished a night shift. Dylan's girlfriend Vanessa was already there, a Nashville socialite who looked uncomfortable in the rural setting, checking her phone every few minutes. As we settled around the table, Dad stood to say grace, but not before making his customary pre-dinner speech. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he began, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd worked this land for 4 decades. "This ranch, this legacy, it means everything to me. And I'm grateful that at least one of my sons understands what it takes to build something real, something lasting." My jaw tightened. Jennifer reached under the table and squeezed my hand. Dad continued, his eyes on Dylan. "Dylan, your plans for expanding the ranch into agritourism, your connections with investors in Nashville, your vision for what this place could become, it's exactly what we need. Your brother, ... Quotes, he glanced at me with what might have been disappointment. "He's a hard worker, don't get me wrong. But hard work without vision is just spinning wheels." The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma looked up at me with worried eyes, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand it. After grace, as dishes were passed and conversations flowed, Dylan dominated the discussion. He talked about his latest consulting contract, about the investors he'd brought to tour the property last month, about his plans to transform the Henderson Ranch into a premier destination for city folks wanting an authentic rural experience. "We could do farm-to-table dinners, horseback riding tours, even weddings," Dylan said, his enthusiasm infectious to everyone except me. "I've already got a Nashville event planner interested. We're talking about a potential revenue stream of $500,000 annually within 3 years." Dad's eyes lit up. "You see this, Marcus? This is thinking big. This is what builds empires." I cut into my turkey, the knife scraping against the plate a little too hard. "Sounds great, Dylan. Who's going to run all that while you're in Nashville with your consulting business?" Dylan's smile didn't waver. "I'll hire managers. Good ones. This is about working smart, not hard." "Right," I said quietly, "working smart." Jennifer shot me a warning look, but I could see she understood. She'd been there through all of it, through the years of me working myself to exhaustion, through the Christmases when Dad praised Dylan's gifts but barely acknowledged mine, through the time I'd saved the ranch from foreclosure with my own money and never told anyone. After dinner, as the women cleared the table and the children played in the living room, Dad called Dylan and me into his study. The room smelled of leather and old wood, lined with books and family photographs, most of them featuring Dylan's achievements. Dylan's college graduation, Dylan's first business award, Dylan with the governor at some Nashville function. There was one photo of me from high school in my football uniform. I'd been good enough to get scholarship offers, but I'd stayed to help with the ranch. That decision felt like a lifetime ago. Dad settled into his leather chair, gesturing for us to sit. I wanted to talk to you both about the future. I'm not getting any younger, and I've been thinking about succession planning. My heart sank. I knew where this was going. Dylan, your mother and I have decided that when the time comes, you should take over as primary decision-maker for the ranch. You've got the education, the connections, the vision. Marcus, you'll still have a role, of course. We'll work out something fair. Something fair, I repeated, my voice hollow. You're good at the day-to-day operations, Dad continued, oblivious to the devastation in my eyes. But leadership requires more than that. It requires what Dylan has. Dylan shifted uncomfortably, the first crack in his confident facade. Dad, maybe we should all discuss this together. Not just, it's fine, I interrupted, standing abruptly. Whatever you think is best, Dad. I walked out before he could see the emotion threatening to break through. I found Jennifer in the kitchen, and she took one look at my face and knew. Let's go, she said quietly, already gathering the girls. As we drove away from the ranch, Emma asked from the back seat, Daddy, why does Grandpa like Uncle Dylan more than you? The question, innocent and devastating, hung in the air. Jennifer quickly said, Honey, that's not, because sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them, I said, my voice thick. But that's okay. We know what we have. But as I drove through the Tennessee night, the lights of the ranch fading in my rearview mirror, I made a decision. I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of watching Dylan take credit for the life I'd built with my own hands. It was time the truth came out, and I had exactly what I needed to prove it. Locked in a safe deposit box at the Crossville Bank, documents that would change everything. The deed, the loan papers, the years of receipts, all in my name. My father had said Dylan built everything they could see. Next Sunday, I would show them what they'd been blind to all along. Wednesday morning found me at the Cumberland County Bank on Main Street, a modest brick building that had served our community for 70 years. I'd taken a rare day off from the auto shop to do this, to finally gather the proof of everything I'd done in silence. The bank manager, Patricia Kowalski, greeted me with the kind of recognition that comes from years of working together. She'd handled the complicated web of loans and payments that had kept the Henderson Ranch afloat, and she knew more about my sacrifices than my own family did. Marcus, good to see you, she said, leading me to her office. What can I do for you today? I need to access my safe deposit box, Patricia, and I need you to pull together some documents for me, financial records from the past 15 years. Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she was too professional to pry. Of course, give me about 20 minutes to compile everything. While I waited, I sat in the bank's small customer area, watching the people of Crossville go about their business. This was my community. These were the people who knew me as the Henderson boy who'd stayed, who'd worked, who'd never asked for recognition or thanks. Old Mr. Chun, who ran the hardware store, waved at me through the window. I'd helped him fix his delivery truck last month, refusing payment. Susan Martinez, the high school principal, smiled as she passed. I'd donated anonymously to the school's new computer lab, money I'd saved from my mechanic work. Nobody knew. That was the story of my life. Nobody knew what I'd actually done. Patricia returned with a thick folder and led me to the vault. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the safe deposit box. Inside were documents I'd carefully preserved over the years. The original deed to the ranch's eastern expansion, purchased with a loan in my name when Dad had been denied credit 10 years ago. Receipts for the new barn that Dylan had supposedly funded. Mortgage payment records showing. I'd been covering the shortfalls for years. And the most damning piece of all, the incorporation papers for Henderson Agricultural Holdings, LLC. Established 8 years ago when the ranch was on the verge of bankruptcy. The sole owner, Marcus Allen Henderson. Dad didn't know it, but technically he didn't own the ranch anymore. I did. I'd structured it carefully with Patricia's help and a lawyer friend from my Army days, making sure the family could continue living and working there, but protecting the property from creditors when things got bad. It had been bad. Very bad. And while Dylan was finishing his MBA in Nashville, I'd been negotiating with banks and creditors, working 3 jobs, selling my truck, even pawning my high school football championship ring. Marcus, Patricia said gently, are you sure about whatever you're planning? I looked up at her. You know what's been going on, Patricia. You've seen it all. I have, she admitted. And I've always wondered why you didn't say something. You saved your family's legacy. Multiple times. I kept hoping it would matter eventually. That Dad would see ... I trailed off, shaking my head. But it doesn't matter anymore what I hoped for. It's time they knew the truth. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table in the small house Jennifer and I had bought in Townbot because living on the ranch meant watching Dylan be celebrated while I was treated like hired help. The documents were spread before me, years of sacrifice and silent heroism reduced to paper. Jennifer sat beside me, her nurse's uniform exchanged for comfortable sweats. Emma and Sophie were asleep upstairs. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to show up next Sunday with these. I'm going to put them on that dining room table, and I'm going to ask Dad exactly what he thinks Dylan built. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. This will hurt him, Mark. Your father. He's been hurting me for 34 years. Jen, every time he looked past me to see Dylan, every accomplishment of mine he ignored. Every time he made me feel like I wasn't enough. My voice cracked. I have worked myself to the bone for that ranch, for this family. I have sacrificed everything. And for what? To be told I'm good at maintenance but lack vision? Jennifer took my hand. I know. God, I know. I've watched it destroy you slowly, piece by piece. But I need you to be sure this is what you want. Once you do this, you can't take it back. Your relationship with your father ... double quotes, what relationship? I said bitterly, the one where I'm the disappointment. Where I'm the son who didn't measure up. She squeezed my hand tighter. You've measured up to me. To our daughters. To everyone who actually knows you. I looked at the photographs on our wall Emma's first day of school. Sophie's birthday party. Our small wedding at the courthouse because we couldn't afford anything bigger. A simple, honest life built on real love and real work. I need him to know, I said quietly. I need Dad to understand that everything he thinks Dylan built. It was me. It was always me. And if he chooses Dylan anyway, at least I'll know I told the truth. The next few days crawled by. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was elsewhere. My coworker Jamal noticed the distraction on Friday afternoon as we worked on a transmission together. You good, man? He asked. I considered deflecting, but Jamal had become a good friend over the years. Family stuff. My dad's been treating me like I'm invisible my whole life. Praising my brother for things I actually did. I'm finally going to call him out on it. Jamal whistled low. That's heavy, brother. What did you do? Everything. Saved the family ranch multiple times. Actually own it now, legally. But Dad thinks my brother's the hero, because he shows up with fancy ideas and consultant fees. Damn, Jamal said. So you're gonna drop the truth bomb? This Sunday, at family dinner. Want some advice? Jamal asked. I nodded. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, man. If you're doing it to finally get your dad's approval, you might be disappointed. Some people can't see past their own illusions. But if you're doing it because you need to stop living a lie, because you need to respect yourself even if he doesn't, then do it. Just know the difference. The words hit me hard. Was I doing this for Dad's approval, or was I doing it for myself? That night, I talked it through with Jennifer again as we lay in bed. Jamal asked me why I'm really doing this, I said. And what did you tell him? I didn't have a good answer. Part of me wants Dad to finally see me, to be proud of me. But another part just wants to stop pretending. Stop letting Dylan take credit. Stop protecting everyone's feelings while mine don't matter. Jennifer turned to face me in the darkness. You know what I think? I think you deserve to stop carrying this alone. Whether your dad changes his mind about you or not, you deserve to live in the truth. And maybe that's reason enough. I pulled her close. She'd stood by me through everything, the long hours, the financial stress, the family dynamics that made her want to scream sometimes. She'd been my anchor when I felt like I was drowning. What if it makes everything worse? I whispered. Then we'll deal with it together. But Mark, it can't get much worse than watching you slowly lose yourself trying to be invisible enough not to disappoint him while working hard enough to save everything he loves. Sunday was coming. And with it, the reckoning I'd been building toward for 15 years. I spent Saturday morning making copies of the most important documents, organizing them chronologically, preparing my case like a lawyer preparing for trial. Because that's what it felt like. I was about to defend my worth, my value, my very existence in my father's eyes. My phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. Looking forward to tomorrow. Got some big news to share with the family. I stared at the message. Big news. Of course, Dylan had big news. Dylan always had big news. I replied simply, me too. As Saturday evening fell over Crossville, I stood in my garage, looking at the tools hanging on the wall, each one a reminder of the work I did with my hands. The honest labor that had built the life my family enjoyed but never acknowledged. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they would finally see what I'd built. Tomorrow, that Sunday dinner when my father inevitably praised Dylan for everything they could see, I would show them the deed. And then, they would know the truth. Sunday morning broke cold and clear over Crossville, the November sky a sharp blue that promised the first frost of the season. I woke before dawn, my stomach churning with anticipation and dread. Jennifer was already awake beside me, watching me with concern. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "Yes, I do." I showered, dressed carefully in my best jeans and a button-down shirt not as polished as Dylan's wardrobe, but honest, real. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. When had the weight settled so heavily in my eyes? The brown leather folder containing the document sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Emma came downstairs in her Sunday dress, took one look at my face, and hugged me without saying anything. 8 years old, but she understood something important was happening. "It's gonna be okay, Daddy," she whispered. I held my daughter, drawing strength from her innocent faith. "Yeah, baby girl, it is." The drive to the ranch was familiar but felt different today. Every fence post I'd repaired, every field I'd irrigated, every building I'd maintained, I saw it all with new eyes. This was my land, my work, my sacrifice. Dylan's BMW was already in the driveway when we arrived, alongside Dad's old pickup and Mom's sedan. I parked my truck next to them, the contrast between my worn Ford and Dylan's luxury vehicle feeling like a metaphor for everything. Mom met us at the door, her smile warm but her eyes worried. "Marcus, honey, you look tense. Everything all right?" "Everything's fine, Mom. Is everyone here?" "Almost. Your Uncle Jim and Aunt Carol are coming too. Dylan said he had something important to announce, so I invited them." She lowered her voice. "Your father's in a good mood today. Try not to upset him, okay?" The familiar request, don't upset him, don't rock the boat, don't make waves. I'd spent 34 years following that advice. Today I was done. The house smelled of Mom's famous pot roast and homemade rolls. The dining room table was set with extra care, and I noticed she'd used the good silver reserved for special occasions. Whatever Dylan's announcement was, it was being treated like an event. Uncle Jim, Dad's younger brother, was already in the living room with his wife Carol. Jim ran a successful construction company, and had always been more accepting of me than Dad had been. "Marcus." Jim stood to shake my hand. "How's business at the shop?" "Steady. We're fully booked through December." "Good, good. You know, I keep telling your father he should be proud of how you've built that business from nothing." The comment hung in the air. Jim, unlike Dad, had always seen my worth. Dylan emerged from the kitchen, Vanessa trailing behind him, looking immaculate in a designer dress. "The prodigal brother arrives," Dylan said with false heartiness. "Ready for a memorable Sunday dinner?" "You have no idea," I replied, my grip tightening on the leather folder. Dad came in from his study, and the family gathered in the living room for pre-dinner drinks. I declined the bourbon he offered, wanting to keep a clear head. I sat on the edge of the sofa, the leather folder on the coffee table in front of me, trying to calm my racing heart. "Before dinner," Dylan announced. Standing by the fireplace like he was about to give a presentation, I wanted to share some exciting news with everyone. Here it comes, I thought. Another achievement, another reason for Dad to look at Dylan with pride. As you all know, I've been working with some investors from Nashville on the agritourism project for the ranch. Dylan paused for effect. "Well, I'm pleased to announce that we've secured $2 million in funding to transform the Henderson Ranch into a premier destination experience." Mom gasped. Dad's face lit up with an expression of pure joy that I'd never seen directed at me. $2 million, Dad repeated, his voice full of wonder. "Dylan, that's incredible. This will change everything." I felt something crack inside my chest. "There's more," Dylan continued. "The investors want to feature the ranch in a regional marketing campaign. Heritage and innovation is the theme. They specifically want to highlight how our family has built something special here through vision and entrepreneurship." Vision and entrepreneurship, as the words felt like knives. And Dylan went on, "They've asked me to come on as managing partner. I'd be relocating back here permanently, overseeing the transformation. Vanessa and I," he looked at his girlfriend who smiled on cue, "we'd be moving back to Tennessee." The room erupted in congratulations. Mom was crying happy tears. Dad stood to embrace his youngest son, his voice thick with emotion. "I always knew you'd do something great, Dylan. Always knew it." Uncle Jim caught my eye across the room, his expression sympathetic. He'd seen this dynamic play out for years. I waited until the initial excitement died down. Then I stood, the folder in my hands. That's wonderful news, Dylan, really. But before we celebrate, I think there's something everyone should know. The room went quiet. Dad frowned slightly. Marcus, this is your brother's moment. Can't whatever you have to say wait? No, Dad, it can't. Because what Dylan just described, transforming the ranch, talking about our family building something special, it involves some things that need to be clarified. Dylan's smile faltered. Mark, I don't know what do you remember? I interrupted, my voice steady now despite my pounding heart. What you said to me last week at dinner. You said I was good at maintenance but lacked vision. That leadership requires what Dylan has. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Marcus, I didn't mean, and you, Dad, I continued, looking directly at him. You told me that Dylan built everything I could see on this ranch, that he has vision and connections and everything needed to lead. Son, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. I opened the folder, pulling out the first document with hands that were surprisingly steady now. This is the deed to the eastern expansion of the ranch, the 200 acres that Dylan supposedly helped acquire 10 years ago. I placed it on the coffee table. It's in my name. I bought it with a loan when your credit was denied, Dad. I've been paying the mortgage for 10 years. Alone. The room went silent. Dad reached for the document, his face pale. I continued, pulling out more papers. My voice grew stronger with each revelation. This is the receipt for the new barn. The one Dylan claimed he funded through his business connections. I paid for it. $47,000 from my savings. Money I earned, working 60-hour weeks at the shop. Marcus, Dylan started, but I held up my hand. These are the mortgage payment records for the main ranch. You can see here, highlighted in yellow, every month for the past 8 years, where I covered the payments when the ranch account came up short. That's $180,000 total. While Dylan was getting his MBA, I was keeping this place from foreclosure. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Jim leaned forward, studying the documents with growing understanding. And this, I said, my voice breaking slightly now as I placed the final document on the table, is the incorporation papers for Henderson Agricultural Holdings, LLC, filed 8 years ago when the ranch was on the verge of bankruptcy. The sole owner listed is Marcus Allen Henderson. The words landed like bombs in the silent room. Dad picked up the incorporation papers with shaking hands, reading them over and over, as if he couldn't comprehend what they said. What does this mean? He whispered. It means, I said, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay calm, that, legally, I own this ranch. I structured it to protect you, to protect the family legacy when creditors were circling. I did it while working 3 jobs, while Dylan was in graduate school. I did it while you were telling me I lacked vision. Dylan had gone pale, his confident demeanor crumbling. Mark, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. The words burst out of me, years of pain finally finding voice. Nobody knew because I didn't tell them. I just did the work. I fixed the fences and paid the bills and saved the land you're all standing on. And I did it while being invisible, while being the disappointing son who just maintained things. Jennifer had tears streaming down her face. Emma and Sophie clung to their mother, frightened by the emotion in my voice, but I couldn't stop now. The dam had broken. Dad looked at the documents, then at me, then back at the documents. You own the ranch. Yes. And every improvement Dylan is claiming credit for. Every expansion, every upgrade. I built it. Me. With my hands and my money and my credit. The irrigation system Dylan consulted on, I installed it. The renovations to the main house, I did them. The financial restructuring that saved us from bankruptcy, I arranged it. Uncle Jim spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. Robert, I tried to tell you. Years ago, I tried to tell you what Marcus was doing. Dad didn't respond, still staring at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Dylan found his voice, and for the first time, I heard genuine shock in it. Marcus, I thought Dad was covering those costs. I thought the business loans he mentioned. There were no business loans. Dylan, there was me working at the auto shop 60 hours a week, taking on side jobs, selling everything I had, including my truck, my tools, even my high school championship ring to keep this place alive. Mom started crying. Marcus, why didn't you tell us? I looked at her, and all the years of silent suffering came pouring out, because I kept hoping it would matter eventually. That Dad would finally see me, be proud of me, but it didn't matter how hard I worked or how much I sacrificed. Dylan showed up with his fancy degrees and his big ideas, and suddenly he was the hero, the visionary, the one who built everything. I turned back to Dad, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before, genuine shock, and the beginning of understanding. But it was too late for comfort. The truth was out, raw and bleeding. "You want to hand this ranch over to Dylan?" I continued, gesturing to the documents. "Go ahead, but understand what you're handing over. You're giving him the land I bought, the buildings I paid for, the legacy I saved when he was nowhere to be found. You're rewarding the image of success instead of the reality of sacrifice." Dad's voice was barely a whisper. "Marcus, I had no idea. That's the problem, Dad. You had no idea because you never looked. You were too busy being dazzled by Dylan's potential to see what I was actually doing." The silence in the room was deafening. Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear. Uncle Jim was shaking his head slowly, his expression a mixture of vindication and sadness. Dylan sat down heavily, his earlier triumph completely evaporated. "Mark, I swear I didn't know. The investors, the funding, I was trying to help the family. With my ranch," I said quietly. "You were making plans for my property without even knowing it was mine." Mom stood up, moving toward me. "Honey, please, we can work this out. Can we, Mom?" I asked, tears finally breaking through. "Can we work out 34 years of being second best? Can we fix the fact that my own father doesn't know I saved his legacy 3 times over? That he was ready to push me aside for the son who showed up with PowerPoints and promises?" Dad finally looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes too. "Marcus, I've been a fool." "Yes," I said simply. "You have." The truth hung between us, terrible and liberating. I'd said it. After all these years, I'd finally said it. "What happens now?" Dylan asked quietly. I looked around the room at my family, at the documents scattered on the coffee table, at the life I'd built and saved and protected in silence. "Now," I said, picking up the folder, "everyone knows the truth. What you do with it is up to you." I walked to where Jennifer stood with our daughters. Emma was crying, but when I picked her up, she wrapped her arms tight around my neck. "Are we leaving, Daddy?" Sophie asked. "No, baby girl. We're just taking a break. Let's go get some air." As I walked toward the door, Uncle Jim stood. "Marcus, wait. Just ... wait." I stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'm proud of you," Jim said, "for what you've done for this family, and for finally telling the truth. That took more courage than anything else you've done." I nodded, not trusting my voice, and walked out into the November afternoon, my family beside me. Behind me I heard Dad say something to Dylan, his voice broken. "What have I done?" But I didn't stop to hear the answer. For the first time in my life I'd spoken my truth. And whether they understood it, believed it, or accepted it, that wasn't my burden anymore. The truth was out, and I was finally, terrifyingly, free. We didn't go far. Just to the old oak tree, at the edge of the property, the one where I used to hide as a kid when things got too hard at home. Jennifer spread out a blanket she kept in the car, and we sat there, me, her, and our girls, watching the sun begin its descent toward the Tennessee hills. Sophie fell asleep in Jennifer's lap within minutes, exhausted by the emotional weight of what she'd witnessed. Emma sat pressed against my side, quiet but alert, her small hand holding mine. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked Jennifer, my voice raw. She looked at me with those steady brown eyes that had seen me through everything. "You told the truth. That's always right, even when it's hard. I destroyed dinner. I ruined Dylan's big moment. I made Mom cry. Mark, you didn't destroy anything that wasn't already broken. This has been broken for a long time. You just finally said it out loud." I pulled Emma closer. "I'm sorry you had to see that, baby girl." "It's okay, Daddy," she said in her small voice. "Uncle Dylan was taking credit for your stuff. That's not fair." Out of the mouths of babes. An 8-year-old understood what my father had missed for decades. We sat there for maybe 20 minutes before I saw Uncle Jim walking toward us across the field. He moved slowly, giving me time to see him coming, time to decide if I wanted to talk. When he reached us, he didn't sit down immediately. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking out at the ranch spread before us. "Your father wants to talk to you," he said finally. "I'm not ready, I know." I told him that. Jim sat down on the grass beside us. "But I wanted to talk to you, if that's all right." I nodded. "I've watched this dynamic for years, Marcus. Watched your father overlook you, watched you work yourself to the bone trying to prove something that should have been obvious. I tried to tell Robert, tried to make him see. But some men, ... double quotes, he trailed off, shaking his head. Some men only see what they want to see. Why does he hate me?" The question came out before I could stop it, the one I'd been carrying since childhood. "He doesn't hate you, Marcus. That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" "Because it sure feels like hate from where I'm sitting." Jim was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you something about your father? Something you might not know?" I waited. "Robert had an older brother, Michael. Did he ever tell you about him? I frowned. No, I didn't know he had a brother. Michael was everything Robert wasn't. Smart, charismatic, successful. Made a fortune in real estate in Memphis. And Robert, Robert, stayed on the farm. Worked the land just like his father and grandfather before him. He always felt like the lesser son, like he'd disappointed his own father by being practical instead of exceptional. The words hit me like a physical blow. So he's doing to me what his father did to him? Not exactly. I think with you he sees himself. The steady, reliable one. The maintainer. And with Dylan, he sees Michael, the dreamer, the one who gets out and makes something bigger. Somewhere in his mind, he's trying to rewrite his own story by making Dylan the successful son he wished he'd been. That's not fair to me. No, Jim agreed. It's not. It's deeply unfair. It's cost him the relationship with a son who's worth 10 of what he thinks Dylan is. But Robert's a stubborn man, Marcus. He's been blind for so long. I don't know if he can see clearly now, even with the truth staring him in the face. I felt Jennifer's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. What happened in there after I left? I asked. Jim smiled sadly. Dylan collapsed into a chair like someone had punched him. Your mother couldn't stop crying, and Robert just sat there reading those documents over and over. Finally, he looked at Dylan and said, "Did you know any of this?" And Dylan said, "No." And Robert said, "Then we've both been fools." That doesn't fix anything. No, it doesn't. But it's a start. Recognition is the first step toward redemption, Marcus. It doesn't undo the damage, but it's something. We sat in silence for a while. Emma had dozed off too, her head heavy against my ribs. The November wind picked up, carrying the smell of wood smoke from someone's chimney. "What are you going to do?" Jim asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to walk away from all of it. Sell the ranch, take my family. Start over somewhere where I'm not constantly reminded of never being enough. And the other part?" I looked out at the land, the fields I'd tended, the fences I'd mended, the legacy I'd preserved. The other part of me loves this place. It's in my blood, Jim. This land, this work, it's who I am. And that makes it worse, because staying means accepting that I'll always be fighting for recognition from a man who might never give it. "For what it's worth," Jim said, "you have my recognition. You always have. You're twice the man Dylan is, and 10 times the man your father sees." The words brought unexpected tears. "Thanks, Jim." He stood up, brushing grass from his pants. "Take your time out here. But eventually, you'll need to go back in there, not for them, for you, to hear what they have to say now that the truth is out." After Jim left, Jennifer and I sat with our sleeping daughters as the sun sank lower. My phone buzzed several times, texts I didn't read. The world could wait. "What do you want to do, Mark?" Jennifer asked. "Not what you think you should do. What do you actually want?" I thought about it, really thought about it. I want an apology, a real one. I want Dad to look me in the eye and acknowledge what I've done, what I've sacrificed. I want Dylan to understand that his success was built on my foundation. And I want ... My voice broke. I want to matter to them. Just once, I want to be the son they're proud of. And if that doesn't happen, then I need to figure out how to be okay anyway. How to be proud of myself even if they're not. The sun was setting in earnest now, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Jennifer started to wake the girls, and we gathered our things. As we walked back toward the house, I saw figures on the porch. Dad, Dylan, and Mom silhouetted against the warm light from inside. They were waiting. My stomach tightened, but I kept walking. Jennifer squeezed my hand. Whatever happened next, I'd told the truth. And that was something I could be proud of, even if no one else was. When we reached the porch, Dad stood up. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. His eyes were red, his face drawn. "Marcus," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please, can we talk?" I looked at Jennifer, who nodded. She took the girls inside to wash up, leaving me alone with my father and brother. The three of us stood there in awkward silence. Finally, Dad gestured to the porch chairs. "Sit, please." I sat, but I didn't relax. Every muscle in my body was tense, ready for fight or flight. Dad sat across from me, Dylan beside him. My brother looked genuinely shaken, the confident consultant facade completely gone. "I've been reading the documents," Dad began. "All of them. Reading them and trying to understand how I missed so much." I didn't respond. I'd said my piece. Now it was their turn. "The Eastern expansion," Dad continued. "I remember when that happened. I was angry that I'd been denied the loan. But then you told me it had been approved after all, that the bank had reconsidered. You let me believe that. Because you needed to believe it," I said quietly. "You needed to maintain your pride. So I took out the loan in my name and let you think the bank had changed their mind." Dad's face crumpled. "You protected me. I protected the family. That's what I've always done. Dylan spoke up, his voice uncertain. Mark, the investments I talked about with the ranch. I genuinely thought I was helping. I thought Dad owned the property free and clear. I had no idea that I was drowning in debt to keep it afloat. I finished. That every expansion you consulted on, I was the one who actually paid for and built. No, Dylan, you didn't know. Because you were too busy being the golden child to ask questions. That's not fair, Dylan started, but I cut him off. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Really asked, not just the polite version you say in passing. When was the last time you wondered how I afforded to keep this place running on a mechanic's salary? You just assumed Dad had it handled. You assumed your consulting advice was enough contribution. Dylan looked down at his hands. You're right, I was selfish. I was so focused on my own success, on making a name for myself, that I never stopped to think about what you were carrying. Dad cleared his throat. Marcus, I need to say something, and I need you to hear me. Can you do that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. I have been the worst kind of fool, Dad said, and tears spilled down his weathered cheeks. I have spent your entire life overlooking you, undervaluing you, taking you for granted, and I have no good excuse. You were always there, always reliable, always working, and I treated that like it was nothing, like it was expected. He wiped his eyes roughly with the back of his hand. Uncle Jim told me about Grandpa Michael, I said. Dad's eyes widened. Jim told you? About my brother? About how you felt like the lesser son? How you stayed on the farm while he went off and became successful? How you felt like a disappointment to your own father? Dad nodded slowly. Yes, that's exactly how I felt. Every damn day of my life. So you made me feel the same way. You made me your Michael and Dylan your do-over. Your chance to be the father who celebrated the exceptional son instead of taking the reliable one for granted. The truth of it hung in the air. Dad didn't deny it. I never saw it that way, he said finally, but you're right. God help me, you're right. I was so determined not to be like my father, to celebrate ambition and vision, that I became exactly like him in a different way. I overlooked the son who actually deserved my pride. I felt something break loose in my chest. Not healing, not yet, but a crack in the armor I'd built around the pain. Do you know what it's been like? I asked, my voice shaking. Do you have any idea what it's like to work yourself to exhaustion, to sacrifice everything, and watch someone else get the credit? To hear your own father say you lack vision while you're literally saving his legacy? No, Dad whispered. But I'm beginning to understand. And Marcus, I am so sorry. Dylan spoke up again. Mark, I want to make this right. The investors, the $2 million, I'm going to tell them the truth. That you're the one who built this place, who owns it, who should be making the decisions. I don't want your investors, Dylan. Then what do you want? He asked. Tell me, and I'll do it. I'll do anything to fix this. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Whatever else Dylan was, he wasn't malicious. He'd been oblivious, privileged, blind to his own advantages, but not deliberately cruel. I want you to understand something, I said. Being smart and having vision isn't the same as doing the work. You can consult and strategize and network all you want, but someone has to actually build the thing. Someone has to get their hands dirty. And that someone has been me for 15 years while you took the credit. I know, Dylan said quietly. I see that now. And I'm ashamed, Mark. I'm ashamed that I didn't see it before. We sat in silence as the last light faded from the sky. Inside, I could hear Jennifer helping the girls with something, their voices a reminder of what actually mattered. I need time, I said finally. I need time to figure out what I want to do with the ranch, with my relationship with both of you. This isn't something that gets fixed in one conversation. Take all the time you need, Dad said. Please, Marcus, don't walk away from us completely. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for the chance to earn it. I stood up. I'm going to take my family home now. We can talk more later this week, but right now I need space. Dad stood too, and for a moment, I thought he might try to hug me. Instead, he just nodded. Thank you for telling the truth today. It was hard to hear, but I needed to hear it. As I turned to go inside and collect Jennifer and the girls, Dylan called out, Mark, for what it's worth, you're the better man. You always have been. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I didn't respond, couldn't respond. I just walked inside to my family, the only people who'd always seen my worth. The drive home was quiet. Emma and Sophie dozed in the back seat while Jennifer held my hand across the console. How do you feel? She asked. Exhausted, relieved, terrified, angry, sad. I laughed weakly. Everything, I guess. That sounds about right. Did I do the right thing? You did the brave thing, Jennifer said. And sometimes that's more important than the right thing. You stood up for yourself. You demanded to be seen. That takes courage, Mark. When we got home, I tucked the girls into bed while Jennifer made tea. Emma grabbed my hand before I could leave her room. Daddy, are you and Grandpa going to be okay? I don't know, sweetie, but even if we're not, I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay. You know why? Why? Because I've got you and Sophie and Mom, and that's more than enough. She smiled sleepily. You're the best, Daddy. Those simple words from my 8-year-old daughter meant more than any praise from my father ever could. Later, lying in bed with Jennifer beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that had happened. The truth was out. The documents were revealed. My family knew what I'd done, but the question remained, what happened next? That answer, I realized, was finally up to me, not my father's expectations, not Dylan's success, not the weight of legacy or duty or proving myself worthy, just me deciding what I wanted my life to look like going forward. And for the first time in 34 years, that felt like freedom. 3 weeks had passed since that Sunday dinner, and the Tennessee winter had settled in with a vengeance. I stood in my garage on a Friday evening, working on a customer's truck, when my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. We'd talked a few times since the revelations stilted, careful conversations where we both tried to navigate new territory, but this was the first time he'd called in the evening, outside our scheduled weekly check-ins. Hey, Dad, I answered, setting down my wrench. Marcus, I hope I'm not interrupting. Just finishing up some work. What's going on? There was a long pause. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few weeks. About the ranch, about the future, about what you said. Another pause. I'd like to come by tomorrow morning, if that's all right. There's something I want to discuss with you. My stomach tightened. What kind of something? The kind that needs to be said in person. Would 10 o'clock work? After we hung up, I found Jennifer in the kitchen helping Emma with her homework. Dad wants to come over tomorrow morning. Says he has something to discuss. Jennifer looked up, concern in her eyes. How do you feel about that? Nervous, curious. I don't know what to expect anymore. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. Dad arrived promptly at 10, driving his old pickup. Looked better than he had 3 weeks ago, haunted, more purposeful. He carried a folder under his arm, and my heart sank. More documents, more complications. We settled at my kitchen table with coffee. Emma and Sophie were at Jennifer's mother's house for the morning, giving us privacy. Jennifer stayed, sitting beside me in silent support. First, Dad began. I want to thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know these past weeks haven't been easy. No, they haven't. I've been meeting with my lawyer and my accountant, going over everything, trying to understand the full scope of what you've done for the ranch. He opened the folder, pulling out spreadsheets and financial statements. Do you know how much money you've put into that property over the past 15 years? I shook my head. I'd never added it all up. Didn't want to know the total. $347,000, Dad said quietly. Not counting your labor, just actual cash. Loan payments, improvements, bailouts. Marcus, you've poured the equivalent of a small fortune into keeping the Henderson Ranch alive. The number hung in the air. Jennifer's hand found mine under the table. I did what needed to be done, I said. You did what I should have done. What I failed to do. Dad pushed the documents toward me. I've had papers drawn up. I'm signing the ranch over to you, all of it, free and clear. It's already legally yours, but I want to make it official in every way. The house, the land, the business. It's yours, Marcus. You earned it. I stared at the documents, unable to process what I was hearing. Dad, I don't. Please, let me finish, he interrupted. This isn't charity, and it's not guilt, though God knows I have plenty of that. This is recognition. This is me finally seeing what's been in front of me all along. You built this legacy, son. You saved it. You deserve to control it. What about Dylan? I asked. Dylan and I have talked. At length, Dad smiled sadly. Your brother has done some growing up these past few weeks. He understands that his role in the ranch's future, if he has one at all, should be determined by you. Not me. You. I looked at the documents. A deed transfer, updated LLC papers, everything needed to make me the sole, undisputed owner of the Henderson Ranch. There's no debt attached, Dad continued. I've used my retirement savings to pay off the remaining mortgages. You'll own it free and clear. What you do with it from here, whether you keep it, sell it, transform it, whatever, that's your decision. Why? I asked. Why now? Dad's eyes filled with tears. Because I've spent 3 weeks barely sleeping, Marcus. 3 weeks thinking about what I've done to you, what I've cost you. Uncle Jim told me something that's been rattling around in my head. He said, Robert, you spent so long trying not to be like your father that you became exactly like him in the worst way. He wiped his eyes roughly. My father made me feel invisible because I wasn't exceptional like Michael. And I made you feel invisible because you weren't flashy like Dylan. But exceptional isn't about flash, Marcus. It's about character. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work no one else will do. It's about sacrifice and integrity and love. His voice broke. It's about everything you are that I was too blind to see. I felt my own tears coming and didn't fight them. I can't give you back the years I wasted, Dad continued. I can't undo the pain I caused, but I can give you this. I can give you the recognition you deserve and the control over your own legacy. And I can tell you something I should have said 34 years ago. I am proud of you. I am so damn proud to be your father. The words I'd waited my whole life to hear crashed over me like a wave. Jennifer squeezed my hand tighter, her own tears flowing freely. I don't need the ranch to forgive you, Dad, I said through my tears. That's not what this was about, I know, but I need to give it to you anyway. Because it's right, because it's yours, because my son deserves to own what he built. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of decades shifting between us. What will you do? I asked. Where will you live? Your mother and I have been talking about that. We're thinking of downsizing, maybe getting a place in town. Close enough to visit, far enough to give you space to make the ranch your own. He smiled. Besides, we're getting older. A smaller house, less land to worry about, it might be nice. I looked at the documents again, then at my father. Really looked at him. I saw regret there, yes, but also hope, and genuine love that had been buried under his own issues for too long. I need to think about this, I said. This is a huge decision, of course. Take all the time you need. The papers will be here when you're ready. After Dad left, I sat at the table with Jennifer staring at the documents. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking that 3 weeks ago, I wanted recognition. I wanted my father to see me. And now that I have it, I trailed off. It doesn't fix everything. No, it doesn't erase the years of pain. But it's something. It's a start. What do you want to do with the ranch? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think I want to keep it, but not the way it was. I want to transform it into something new. Maybe some version of Dylan's agritourism idea, but done my way. Something that honors the work and the workers, not just the vision. Jennifer smiled. That sounds like you. Over the next few weeks, things slowly began to shift. Dylan and I met for coffee, awkward at first, but we started building something new. Not the old dynamic of golden child and forgotten son, but something more equal. Brothers trying to figure out how to relate to each other honestly. I talked to the Nashville investors, Dylan said during one of our meetings. Told them the truth about who actually owns and runs the ranch. They want to meet with you. I don't know if I want their money, Dylan. Then don't take it. But at least hear them out. They have some good ideas, and you might find value in some of them. Just ... This time, you'd be the one in control. Not me. Not Dad. You. The idea was tempting. Control. Agency. The power to make my own decisions about my own property. I eventually met with the investors, and we worked out a deal on my terms. A smaller investment, more focused on sustainable agriculture and education rather than pure profit. We'd offer farm-to-table experiences, yes, but also programs for at-risk youth to learn agricultural skills. We'd preserve the heritage while building something new. Dylan helped with the business plan, but I made the decisions. It felt good, right? On Christmas Eve, 6 weeks after the revelation, both our families gathered at the ranch, which was still the ranch, but now with new possibilities on the horizon. Mom and Dad had started packing, preparing for their move to town. The house felt different already, lighter somehow. We gathered around the dinner table, and this time, when Dad stood to speak, his words were different. I want to thank Marcus for hosting us tonight, he began, his voice steady. For his generosity in allowing us to celebrate here one more time before the new chapter begins. This ranch has been in our family for 3 generations, and it's because of Marcus's sacrifice and hard work that it will continue for a 4th. He raised his glass. To my son, the one who saved our legacy, the one I failed to see for far too long. Marcus, this family owes you everything. Uncle Jim raised his glass immediately. To Marcus, everyone echoed. I looked around the table at Dad, finally seeing me clearly, at Mom, her eyes full of love and regret, at Dylan, who was learning to be a better brother, at Jennifer and my girls, who had always known my worth, at Uncle Jim and Aunt Carol, who had tried to make Dad see for years. This was my family, flawed, complicated, but trying, finally trying. Later that evening, after dinner was cleared and the kids were playing in the living room, I found myself on the porch with Dad. The December cold was sharp, our breath visible in the air. I've been thinking about something you said, Dad began, about how you wanted to matter to us, to me. I waited, not sure where he was going. The truth is, you've always mattered, Marcus. I just did a piss-poor job of showing it. But I want you to know something. These past weeks, watching you take control of your life, set boundaries, demand respect. I've never been more proud of anyone in my entire life. Thanks, Dad. No, I mean it. It took courage to do what you did. To tell the truth even when it was hard, to stand up for yourself. Most men never develop that kind of backbone. You have it in spades. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the winter sky. Do you think we can fix this? I asked. Really fix it? I think we're already fixing it, Dad said. It won't happen overnight. Trust takes time to rebuild. But Marcus, I'm committed to doing the work. To being the father you deserved all along, if you'll let me. I thought about it. About forgiveness and redemption and second chances. About the fact that my father was 70 years old and finally learning to see clearly. I'm willing to try, I said, but Dad, things have to be different. No more comparisons to Dylan. No more taking me for granted. I need to know that you see me for who I actually am. I do see you. Finally, after all these years, I see you. And I won't make you invisible again. That's a promise. It wasn't everything. It wouldn't undo the damage of decades. But it was something real, something honest. And for now, that was enough. Spring came to Tennessee with a riot of color and new life. The ranch was transforming, slowly but surely. We'd hired staff, started the youth programs, broken ground on the new event barn that would host farm-to-table dinners and educational workshops. I'd quit the auto shop, finally able to focus full-time on the ranch. It felt strange at first, not having that second job, but also liberating. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't working myself to exhaustion. Jennifer and I were talking about moving to the ranch house once Mom and Dad finished their move to town. Emma and Sophie were excited about the idea of living on the farm, of having space to run and explore. One Sunday afternoon in April, I stood in the eastern fields, the ones I'd bought with my own loan 10 years ago, watching the new irrigation system water the crops. Dylan was there too, helping me plan the layout for the Fall Harvest Festival. You know what's weird? I said. What? I'm happy, actually genuinely happy. I didn't realize how heavy everything was until I finally put it down. Dylan nodded. I've been thinking about that, about how much you carried alone. Mark, I want to ask you something. Okay, would you be open to me coming back? Not to take over, not to consult from a distance, but to actually work, hands-on, learning from you how to really run this place. I looked at my brother, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. The old Dylan would have been offering to manage things, to bring in experts, to strategize. This Dylan was asking to learn, to work, to earn his place rather than assume it. You'd have to start at the bottom, I said. Like everyone else, I know, and I'd be the boss. Final decisions are mine, I know that too. And Mark, that's how it should be. This is your ranch. I'm just hoping you'll let me be part of it. I thought about it. About forgiveness and new beginnings. About the fact that people can change if they're willing to do the work. All right, I said. But Dylan, you screw up, you're out. This is my legacy now. I won't let anyone, even you, jeopardize it. Fair enough. Dylan stuck out his hand. Boss. I shook it, and something that had been broken between us started to mend. That Sunday evening, I sat on my porch with Jennifer, watching Emma and Sophie chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. The ranch spread out before us, alive with possibility. Do you ever think about that Sunday dinner? Jennifer asked. The one where you dropped the truth bomb, sometimes. It feels like a lifetime ago, and yesterday all at the same time. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the pain and the anger and the fear, about the aftermath and the hard conversations and the slow rebuilding. About my father's tears and Dylan's humility and the freedom of finally being seen. No, I said, no regrets. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. I spent 34 years being invisible, Jen. I couldn't do it anymore. You're not invisible now. No, I agreed, pulling her close. I'm not. The fireflies danced in the warm spring air, and my daughter's laughter echoed across the fields I'd saved, on the land I'd built, in the legacy I'd earned. My father had said Dylan built everything I could see, but that Sunday I'd shown them the deed, and in doing so, I'd shown them the truth. Not just about the ranch, but about myself. I was Marcus Henderson, not the disappointing son, not the invisible one, not the brother who lacked vision. I was the man who saved his family's legacy through sacrifice and hard work. The man who stood up for himself when it mattered most. The man who demanded to be seen. And finally, blessedly, I was. The story didn't have a perfect ending. Life doesn't work that way. Dad and I were still rebuilding our relationship, one careful conversation at a time. Dylan was learning that real work meant dirt under your fingernails, not just ideas in a boardroom. Mom was processing her own guilt about not intervening sooner, but we were trying, we were honest, and we were moving forward. Sometimes that's the best any family can hope for. As the stars emerged above the Tennessee hills, I sat with my wife, listened to my daughters play, and felt the weight of my own property beneath me. I had told the truth. I had shown them the deed. And in doing so, I had finally claimed the life I'd built.